Good evening, folks. So apologies, I've been promising to do a video for a little bit of time now, and after doing the live this evening with Dan, it sort of kicked me into life to do it. So tonight I'm going to cover a very special subject in the diecast world, something which I consider to be sort of almost a holy grail in terms of diecast, and this is absolute gorgeous set of an ME109G or Gustav and this lovely b17F, which is called Ye Olde Pub, and the interesting story behind it. So let's cut to it, and we'll do the b17 first. So the Corgi b17 is regarded as the best of its genre. Obviously Air Force One do a version in 172, but for some absolutely bonkers reason they decided to do a version with the engine cowls open, or the cowl flaps I think they're called. And it looks quite garish, the shape isn't quite right, the windows aren't quite the same, but it's decent enough. No, that's not me slating it, it's just not as good as this. And the Corgi b17 has come in for a little bit of criticism over the years, namely around this bit here, the nose joint, but as you can see, obviously if you zoom in on it, it does look a little bit more substantial than it really is. But if we zoom out, actually it's pretty good, decent, and it is an old mould now. It's been around for about 20 odd years, but it's a fantastic mould. And this one is an F version, so it lacks the chink turret, as you can see. It's a version called Ye Olde Pub, and this is known as the higher coal set, curiously, which Corgi didn't actually put on it, but it's a really interesting story. So this aircraft was based at Kimbleton in Cambridgeshire, not a million miles from where Duxford is now. And in 1943, it flew a mission into France, I believe. No, sorry, at the Fokker factory at Bremen. And it was relatively routine. But on the way back, it got ambushed by a number of different fighters, including Fokker 190s and BF109Gs. And it really did get shot up. Most of the crew were injured. The pilot, Lieutenant Charlie Brown, was shot in the shoulder and was struggling to keep control of the aircraft, and the tail gunner had been killed. So after absolutely taking a tanking from the enemy fighters, this aircraft appeared on its tail, and it was flown by a gentleman called Franz Stigler. And Franz decided to take pity on the aircraft, despite being enemies. He refused to shoot at it. And after seeing how badly damaged it was, and had a look at the crew through obviously the window and the bullet holes, he decided not to obviously shoot them down. He tried to persuade them to land by lowering his undercarriage, see if he can get them into enemy territory unharmed, obviously taken as prisoners of war, but the crew refused to do that. So what he did was basically he escorted the aircraft to the North Sea and a little bit further out to sea before sort of saluting the aircraft and turning back, making sure it didn't come under any more attack. He never told any of his comrades this. He just merely did it off his own back, and you know, obviously in a time of war that was unheard of. But the story doesn't end now. So back in the late 80s, 1980s, Lieutenant Charlie Brown thought he'd try and find this pilot. So he did a little bit of tracking, and it turned out that Franz actually lived in Canada. And within about 100 miles of Charlie Brown's house. So they actually become really firm friends toward the end of their life. Unfortunately, they both passed away in 1998, which, you know, 22 years ago, which seems an absolute age ago now. But a lovely story about two foes who should have been setting out to kill each other, who, you know, found a common ground in the middle of the worst conflict in this world's history. So the other part was obviously this aircraft here, which is the BF109G, the Gustav, and this is Franz Stigler's aircraft, depicting that in northern France of JG27 in December 1943. And the Gustav's a lovely model. The only real slight criticism is the undercarriage. Like many Messerschmitts of its time, it's very difficult to just get it right. You have to almost pinch it when you land it, put it on terra firma, and hope that it balances, and you can see it sort of splaying out to the side there. But the actual mould is crisp, it's beautiful, the paint scheme's lovely, the modeling's okay, I wouldn't say it's amazing, but it's decent enough, but the actual overall finish is lovely as well. So a lovely little story there, well worth getting the book if you can get it. It's called A Higher Call. See if you can get hold of that and have a read of it. It's an interesting story, and I guess would make a fantastic film at one point if one of the Hollywood producers pick up on it after the 8th Air Force TV series by Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg sort of hits the TV screens in the future. So as I've touched upon, this is, you know, in many people's eyes, one of the hardest sets to get hold of, or one of the hardest pair of aircraft, I should say, to get hold of. So myself and Dan and our guest on the page, Mr. Gary, who's known as I Am Grod on Instagram, please follow him. We've done some top fives together of our wants. It'd be interesting if you guys could share it with us as well. I'm going to go over mine and then go over theirs, and we go from there. So here is my top five. So I'm going to go through them one by one. So the first aircraft is a really rare beast and a hard one to find, and that is the Gemini P-51B in a Mason Bell. I've seen this aircraft up close when I went to Florida in 2019, which seems a distant dream after all this going on, and it's an absolutely fantastic mould, the P-51B by Gemini, and it's incredibly difficult to find this side of the Atlantic. The second aircraft that I really fancy is this 617 Squadron Vulcan. I'm gutted I never picked this up when it was going for about 90 quid in the antique sale, but now it really does fetch a pretty penny whenever you see them on eBay. The third aircraft is a pretty standard one to find actually, and that's Vicky the Vicious Virgin, the Canadian Halifax. I pinched myself for not getting this when it first came out. I'm actually close to getting the Desert one next on the agenda, and then the VC winning version as well, and that will complete my Halifax collection. The fourth aircraft on my list is an old favourite amongst many collectors, and that is the 172 scale Just Jane from the Lincolnshire Heritage Centre. I'm going to be very lucky to be up close in person with this in October when myself and Dan get to visit East Kirkby. But again, I pinched myself for not getting this when I could have. The final aircraft on my list, on my top five as it currently stands, is this lovely Gemini Desert Spitfire. This is the last Spitfire I need to complete the Gemini Mark 9 set. And again, it just never seems to come up. And if it does, it goes for silly money. So first up is Dan's list, and his top five consists of, unsurprisingly, a couple of Lancasters. So you've got G for George, which is the Royal Australian Air Force one. You've got the new Battle of Britain Memorial Flight Thumper, which is due out this summer. Surprisingly, he's put the Corgi Anniversary Chinook, or Chinook, whatever you want to call it, and that's the Elephant one, which was released last year as part of the RAF 100 set. He's also put the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight Pegasus Dakota, which he naively sold at one point. And finally, he's put one that I've reviewed this evening, and that's the B17 ME109G, a higher call set. So some nice bits in there, I'm sure you'll agree. So finally, as promised, this is Gary's selection. So Gary's a good friend of the page, become a good friend to myself and Dan. And he's really got into his diecast. I'll tag him at the bottom. He's under the tag of I Am Grod. So please follow him. So his top five is as follows. So he's gone for the third Tornado, which is the Gold Star version, and also the QV Mark 1 Spitfire, which is due out again this summer, brand new release. In terms of other selections, he's gone for the Phantom of the Ruhr Lancaster. He's also gone for the recently reviewed D-Day Mitchell in the brown and green camo, which I just recently reviewed last week, and of course the legendary Guy Gibson Mosquito. So he's clearly got some good taste. I think it's mainly down to myself and Dan, to be honest with you, but they're the ones that he's after. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Apologies, like I said, it always seems to be a case of me apologising when I do these videos for not doing any recently. As you can imagine, there's a hell of a lot going on with this coronavirus. You know, I can't emphasise enough. Stay safe, guys. Listen to the government. Do what they're telling us to do. I'm sure we'll all be fine. And hopefully, within a few weeks, this will all blow over and we'll be able to get on with our normal lives again. So, yeah, thanks a lot. Just keep an eye out for myself and Dan doing live videos on Instagram. I will try and take more and more pictures. The plan is to get up into my man room tomorrow and have a little bit of a sort out, see what I can sift through and do a few more pictures for you all. Again, thanks for all the love on Instagram as we approach 13,000 followers, which is absolutely outrageous and bonkers. And that's it from me. So any requests, as always, drop us a message, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.